progressivism?
It's got to do with crime. And so this is really what's happening is the Democratic Party is wrestling with whether it's going to be tough on crime or go down the path of something more progressive.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with senior columnist Tim Carney. And Tim, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot became the first mayor of Chicago to lose a re-election bid in 40 years. What do you think that says about Democrats' tolerance for progressivism?
It's got to do with crime. And so this is really what's happening is the Democratic Party is wrestling with whether it's going to be tough on crime or go down the path of something more progressive. They've elected progressive prosecutors in a handful of cities, and they're talking about decriminalizing, reducing sentences. But just like in New York City, where Eric Adams won kind of on a more tough on crime issue, where he won in really the most crime-ridden precincts was where he won. Lori Lightfoot, it's a different story in Chicago, but Paul Vallis, the school head running against him, basically ran on a tough on crime thing, and he finished first in that first round of voting.
Democrats are sort of making the argument that crime is starting to come down, at least murders are, in a number of cities from those 2021 highs, but people still don't feel safe in a lot of cities. Do you think that this will still be a viable issue in 2024? Do you think it will have been sort of played out by then?
I mean, I think it will be. Carjackings in a lot of cities are record highs. Here in the D.C. area, you can't go to Costco without being worried about getting carjacked. They're just happening in broad daylight. People who aren't very good at carjacking are carjacking now, and people are getting beat up in front of a cop. And the carjackings don't seem to have a purpose. Somebody will take it on a joyride. So even if you're driving a 2008 beat-up Toyota Camry, you might get carjacked. So that just sort of the not feeling safe really does move voters, and it can move those suburban voters who have been trending towards Democrats back towards Republicans if Democrats don't sort of do what some of these Democrats in Chicago did and try to turn things around.
Speaking of D.C., the very liberal city council passed a controversial measure that, despite all of that crime, lowered penalties for most offenses, lowered the types of crimes that the city will prosecute. And the House took a bipartisan vote trying to block that D.C. law. Now the Senate looks like it might do the same. What do you think is going to happen with that? Does Biden have the political grounds to veto it?
So it's really interesting because Democrats have really spent 20, 30 years saying Congress should not interfere with D.C.'s home rule, and it's been Republicans who have been willing to interfere. Now it's gotten bad enough. You're almost decriminalizing carjacking, while carjacking is at an all-time high. That just seems so harmful to the people in the city, so dangerous, as well as politically dumb. So Biden of 10 years ago would have said, this is stupid. We're not going to make there be more carjacking. But Biden these days, there's so many elements in his administration that's pulling him in the progressive direction on this. This might be sort of his toughest thing. Like, is he old, tough on crime Joe Biden, or is he new guy who listens to the progressive? I'm not going to try to predict what he's going to do, but I think you could make like a good Shakespearean drama out of this internal struggle within Biden.
If he does veto it, where do you think the issue goes from there? I mean, do you think that Congress tries to override it? Do you think that becomes something that Republicans,
I think
ride
it
all the way?
becomes a central organizing principle of 2024 that Joe Biden is objectively pro-carjacking. That's how they'll put it, and I think it'll be tough for him to shake it.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Tim and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.